Welcome, dear listeners, to a realm where the quietest sounds hold the darkest secrets. Tonight, as the world settles into its slumber, I, Zaman, invite you to draw your blanket close and listen. For we journey into the extraordinary world of Elias Vance, a man whose unique gift of hearing became both his greatest strength and his most terrifying vulnerability. In the story you are about to hear, The Echo Chamber, silence isn't merely the absence of sound. It's a canvas upon which a chilling truth is painted, a truth Elias alone can decipher. Prepare to be drawn into a world where every whisper counts, and where the echoes of the past can shatter the present. Elias lived in a realm of perfect, deliberate quiet. His home was not merely an apartment. It was a sanctuary of acoustic perfection, a cocoon against the jarring symphony of the city. He was a master of sound, a reclusive artisan who could pick apart the very fabric of noise, isolating whispers from roars, uncovering secrets buried beneath the cacophony of everyday life. They called it a gift, this uncanny ability to hear. Elias, however, knew it was a lonely companion, a constant reminder of a past that haunted his every waking moment, a past that had sharpened his senses to an almost unbearable degree, leaving him sensitive, almost fragile, to the mundane sounds of the world outside his soundproofed walls. His days were a ritual of precise calibration, of waveforms and frequencies, of filtering and refining. His world was a canvas of silence, waiting for him to sculpt it. And then, one ordinary, quiet afternoon, a most extraordinary package arrived. Not a physical package, mind you, but a digital one. An encrypted audio file, sent from an anonymous source. A standard request, or so it seemed, to clean up a distorted corporate meeting recording. Elias, with his customary meticulousness, began his work. He fed the file into his sophisticated system, the digital interface glowing softly in the dim light of his studio. He applied his algorithms, peeling back layers of sonic interference, slowly bringing the muffled voices of the meeting into clearer focus. The distant hum of office life, the muted clatter of keyboards, the faint murmur of background chatter, all began to resolve under his expert touch. But then, as he painstakingly worked, something else began to emerge. Something that didn't belong. A faint, high-pitched whine, almost imperceptible beneath the corporate voices. It wasn't static. It wasn't a glitch. It was too precise, too deliberate, like a needle-thin whisper threading its way through the mundane. Elias paused, his fingers hovering over the console, his breath hitched. This was an anomaly, a ghost in the machine that only his uniquely attuned ears could possibly detect. He isolated the sound, stripping away everything else until only that peculiar, sustained tone remained. It was a synthetic hum, cold and unnerving, like a note held indefinitely by an instrument from a forgotten, unsettling dream. He played it forward, then backwards. He stretched its duration, compressed its peaks, and with each manipulation, the chilling precision of it became more undeniable. This was no accident. This was a signal, an embedded message. As Elias delved deeper, meticulously analyzing the tone's complex waveform, he began to notice the slightest modulations, almost imperceptible undulations within its steady hum. It was like a code, whispered just below the threshold of human hearing. He spent hours, lost in this silent, digital labyrinth, his mind racing, his every fiber straining to decipher the hidden language. And then, faintly, undeniably, something else manifested within the synthetic hum. Not a voice, not a clear sound, but a profound environmental imprint. Elias's trained ears caught it immediately. Faint, irregular footsteps. Not the brisk strides of an office. These were soft, measured, almost hesitant. And then, a sound that sent a jolt of ice through his veins. A rhythmic, almost metallic click. It wasn't a clock's tick. It was irregular, like a single droplet of water falling into an empty space. Then silence. Then 2 drops close together. Then silence once more. It carried an unsettling cadence, a chilling, deliberate rhythm. The realization hit Elias with the force of a physical blow. The corporate meeting was a perfectly crafted deception. The true message, the real horror, was embedded within this hidden layer. This wasn't a recording of a meeting at all. This was a recording of a scene, a terrifying, silent tableau. He amplified the environmental signature, pushing his system to its limits, his mind straining to interpret the phantom sounds. The footsteps became clearer, distinct, and measured, moving across what sounded like thick carpet. And the clicking, it was like a single distant droplet of water falling into an empty cistern. Regular, then erratic. A drop, then silence. Then 2 more drops, close together. Then silence again. His blood ran cold. This wasn't just noise. This was a narrative, and it was a terrifying one. Buried even deeper, beneath the soft footsteps and the rhythmic clicking, was a sound Elias knew intimately. A sound that had haunted his waking hours and invaded his nightmares for years. The sound of a human breath, stifled, labored, not from speech, from fear. A raw, guttural exhalation, choked and abrupt. Then, the rhythmic clicking stopped. The footsteps ceased. Only the steady, artificial, high-pitched tone remained, holding for a moment, then slowly, chillingly fading into oblivion. Elias sat frozen, the glow of his monitors reflecting the stark terror in his eyes. He had just heard a death, a life extinguishing, captured in the cold precision of a hidden frequency. His studio, once his impenetrable fortress, now felt like a tomb, heavy with the phantom echoes of violence. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that what he had just unearthed was not an accident. It was a cold, calculated act, and someone had intended for him to hear it. Or perhaps they had done it deliberately, knowing that only a select few, only someone like Elias, could ever find it. A macabre game, a message meant only for the gifted few. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the edges of his carefully maintained composure. He tried immediately to retrace the client's path, the encrypted email address, the anonymous payment gateway. All of it had vanished without a trace. No digital footprint. It was as if the client had dissolved into the ether the moment the file was delivered. A phantom commission. A dead end. This wasn't a bug in the system. It was a terrifying feature of a meticulously planned operation. Elias forced himself to stand, pushing back from the console, his ergonomic chair suddenly a cage. His legs felt unsteady beneath him. He walked to the window, pulling back the heavy, soundproofed curtain just a crack. Below, the streetlights cast long, indifferent shadows. The distant hum of the city, usually a muffled blanket, now seemed to carry a menacing undertone. His eyes scanned the empty street, the parked cars. Nothing. No one. Just the familiar, comforting anonymity of the urban sprawl. But a new paranoia, a creeping sense of being watched, began to settle in. It was a feeling Elias hadn't experienced since before the accident. Before his world shrank to the size of this quiet, isolated room. He peered harder, squinting into the gloom. And there, across the street, in the shadowed entrance of an abandoned storefront, a figure, too still, too dark, just standing, watching. Or was it just his imagination, a cruel trick of his mind, conjured by the terror of the recording? He yanked the curtain shut, plunging the room back into its controlled, oppressive darkness. His heart hammered against his ribs. Was it a coincidence? Or had the killer, or someone connected to them, already found him? Elias fumbled for his phone, his fingers clumsy with adrenaline. Who did he call? The police. What would he tell them? I heard a murder in a hidden audio frequency. Inside a corporate meeting, recording sent by an anonymous client who disappeared. They would think him insane. Or worse, they would dismiss him entirely. His reputation, already fragile from his reclusiveness, couldn't handle that. His credibility would be shattered. And what if the killer was listening? What if his phone lines were compromised? His internet? The paranoia was infectious, spreading through his mind like a fast-acting virus. This wasn't just a random act of violence. This was meticulous, professional. And now, Elias Vance, the quiet master of sound, was unwillingly entangled. He remembered the subtle click from the recording, the one that sounded like a droplet. He replayed the isolated fragment over and over, his brain trying to identify it, to place it. It wasn't water. It was metallic, precise. And then, as he looped it for the 20th time, a specific cadence clicked into place in his mind. It was a sound he had encountered before, in a different context. A very particular type of trigger mechanism. Not a gun. Something quieter, more intimate. A pneumatic device. A micro-injector. A silent, efficient delivery system for... what? Poison? A chemical agent? The implication was devastating. This wasn't a desperate act, born of chaos or sudden fury. No, this was a professional hit, executed with a chilling, almost artistic precision. The kind of kill where silence was paramount, where the very act faded into the unseen. And the one who performed it, whoever they were, had been so confident, so arrogant in their mastery of the shadows, that they had embedded their signature into the very fabric of the recording. Or perhaps it was a deliberate, twisted message, crafted with the knowledge that only a select few, only someone like Elias, with his profound and almost burdensome gift, could ever find it. A macabre game, indeed, a chilling whisper, meant only for the ears of the truly gifted. It spoke not just of death, but of a chilling intellect, a predator's calculated artistry. His studio, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. Every hum of the equipment, every creak of the floorboards seemed amplified, taking on a sinister quality. Elias felt a profound sense of isolation, cut off from the world, yet horrifyingly connected to a crime that existed only in the unseen frequencies. The killer was out there, and they knew he knew, or they would, soon enough. His hands, still trembling, reached for the console, pulling up the file once more. He had to go back in. He had to understand. He had to find out who was behind this, and why. Elias Vance was no longer a bystander. He was a target, and the game had only just begun. The artificial tone surged back through his headphones, a silent, chilling siren call, drawing him deeper into the echo chamber of a killer's mind. Elias Vance, alone in his sanctuary of sound, found himself caught in the chilling embrace of a nightmare he had unwittingly awakened. The artificial hum, the hidden echoes of a life extinguished, played on a loop in his mind. He knew he should step away, should try to forget the terrifying truths his ears had uncovered. But a deep, unyielding current, born of his unique sensitivity and perhaps a hidden compulsion, pulled him back towards the console, towards the heart of the enigma. He had to understand. He had to find every last fragment of information hidden within that silent, deadly frequency. As he began to meticulously dissect the nuances of the tone once more, searching for new layers, new whispers, a different kind of sound began to intrude. It wasn't from the recording, it was from his own building, a faint, almost imperceptible metallic scrape from somewhere distant, then closer. It was the sound of precision tools meeting the resistant force of a lock. Not a brute force attack, but something far more insidious. Someone was picking their way into his carefully secured world. Elias froze, every nerve ending screaming a silent alarm. His building, with its layers of security, its reinforced doors, was supposed to be impenetrable. Yet, the subtle sounds, distinct to his hyper-attuned ears, painted a clear picture. The gentle clink of a tension wrench, the soft thud of tumblers falling into place. They were professionals. They were here, and they were coming for him. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, oppressive silence of his studio. He moved with a speed born of pure instinct, his eyes darting to the monitor that displayed the building's main entrance. The screen flickered, showing a woman standing patiently outside. She was tall, dressed in a practical dark jacket, her face partially obscured by the camera's angle and the deep shadows. She wasn't the shadowy figure he thought he'd glimpsed earlier across the street. This woman held herself with an unnerving calm, a focused stillness that commanded attention. Elias's finger hovered over the intercom, his mind racing. Could this be a new threat? Another part of the same chilling apparatus? But then, she raised her hand to the camera, revealing a small, unmarked envelope. His name was printed on it, in elegant cursive script. A chill rippled through him that had nothing to do with the night air. How did she know he was here? How did she know his name? And what kind of person knew exactly where to find him, yet appeared with such quiet assurance? He took a shaky breath, the only sound in the otherwise perfectly silent room. He pressed the intercom button, his voice a low, guarded rasp. "Yes?" he managed. The woman's voice, amplified by the intercom, was clear, calm, almost unnervingly composed. "Mr. Vance, my apologies for the intrusion. My name is Dr. Elias Thorne. I believe you've come across something of interest." The name, Dr. Elias Thorne. Elias vaguely recognized it. A brilliant, if controversial, figure in theoretical physics, known for her groundbreaking, almost esoteric work in quantum information theory. But why was she here? And how did she know about the recording? About the anomaly? Elias tried to feign ignorance, his voice tight. I don't know what you're talking about." Dr. Thorne's voice on the intercom held a hint of something unreadable, a subtle undertone beneath her composure. "Oh, I think you do. The recording, the anomaly within the anomaly. It's what brought me here. We need to talk. Now, before it's too late." That last phrase, "before it's too late," was delivered with a subtle urgency that cut through Elias's fear. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea, or a desperate warning. The possibility of an ally, however unlikely, suddenly seemed less terrifying than continuing this nightmare alone. With a silent prayer for guidance, Elias buzzed her in. The click of the electronic lock echoed with a startling loudness in the quiet of his apartment, a definitive sound in a night that had been defined by the silent and the unseen. He watched her on the monitor as she entered the small lobby, her movements precise, unhurried. She didn't look around nervously. She looked focused, determined. Elias retreated deeper into his studio, leaving the heavy steel door ajar. A calculated risk. He needed the advantage of his own territory, his own elements, however precarious they now seemed. He stood by the console, his hand resting on the mute button. A small, futile gesture of control. "Mr. Vance? Elias?" Her voice echoed slightly in the hallway, closer now. She appeared in the doorway of his studio, a presence that was both unassuming and intensely intelligent. Her sharp, perceptive eyes swept over his equipment, taking in the meticulous organization, the almost sterile environment. There was no judgment in her gaze, only a deep, almost academic curiosity. "This is impressive," she said, her voice now softer, more direct. "You've created quite the echo chamber here. Fitting, considering." Elias struggled to control the tremor in his own voice. "What do you want? How do you know about anything?" Dr. Thorne stepped further into the room, her voice lowering, becoming more conspiratorial, as if sharing a profound secret. My organization has been tracking a specific signature for some time, a unique frequency pattern. We believe it's used to embed highly compressed data. When your anonymous file transfer flagged on our network, we monitored it. And when you began to isolate that signature, well, it became clear you weren't just a sound engineer anymore, Mr. Vance. You became a critical variable. Elias felt a cold dread blossom in his chest. An organization. Tracking. This was far bigger than a lone killer. Who are you? What organization? We're a discreet collective. Dr. Thorne explained, her eyes never leaving his. Focused on mitigating what we call informational entropy. Disruptions to the natural flow of data. This particular signature, it's a weapon. Designed to carry more than just audio. It can carry anything. A virus, a command, or, as you discovered, a silent testament to a very unsilent act. Her words were a torrent, complex and unsettling. Informational entropy. A weaponized frequency. It sounded like something out of a futuristic thriller, but the cold dread in Elias's stomach was utterly real. The recording you received, Elias, she continued, her voice now laced with a somber gravity, was a dead drop, a message in a bottle. The corporate meeting was a perfectly crafted illusion. The true payload was the embedded murder, and the intended recipient, well, we believe it was meant for someone else entirely. But you intercepted it. You listened, and now you're in danger. Because the person who sent that message, the one who executed that individual, knows you heard it, and they'll want to silence the last witness. Elias's mind flashed back to the shadowy figure across the street, confirming his worst fears. The figure outside, Dr. Thorne's gaze sharpened, a flicker of concern crossing her composed features. You saw someone? That complicates things. They're faster than I anticipated. The individual who was murdered in that recording, his name was Dr. Alistair Finch, a brilliant computational linguist. He was close to decrypting something profound, something that could shatter the foundations of a very powerful, very hidden network. The name Dr. Alistair Finch resonated dimly in Elias's memory, perhaps from old scientific journals or obscure academic news. But what could a linguist have discovered that warranted such a brutal, silent end? What was he decrypting? Elias whispered, the terror in his voice palpable. And why me? Why send it to me? He wasn't trying to send it to you, Elias. Dr. Thorne clarified, her voice softening slightly, a touch of empathy now present. He was trying to send it to me, or rather, to my predecessor, who was recently eliminated. The encryption key, the final piece of the puzzle, was embedded in that frequency. A dead man's switch. Finch knew he was compromised. He sent out that recording, hoping someone with the unique auditory sensitivity to pick out the anomaly would find it. Someone like you. He knew it would be a long shot, but he was desperate. Elias felt a cold current of destiny ripple through him. His past, the very trauma that had amplified his hearing and driven him into this solitary existence, was suddenly a thread in this terrifying tapestry. His hypersensitivity wasn't a curse tonight. It was a tool, and a fatal magnet. The frequency? It's a key? Elias asked, trying to grasp the enormity of what she was saying. A decryption key for what? For a vast database. Doctor, Thorne explained, her voice now grave. A collection of every secret, every illicit transaction, every compromised individual within a clandestine organization. They call themselves the Silent Chorus because their operations are utterly undetectable. Their reach is global, and they thrive on the shadows. Finch had almost cracked their central ledger. The recording you have, the core frequency, it's the final piece of the algorithm needed to unlock everything. The Silent Chorus. The name was chillingly apt. A shadowy network operating without a trace. And Elias, the reclusive sound artisan, now held the key to their undoing, unknowingly for hours, now with a terrifying clarity. We need that recording, Elias. Dr. Thorne urged, her eyes burning with a quiet intensity. And we need your expertise. The frequency isn't just a key, it's also a timestamp. There are other victims. Finch was not the first. And if we can't decrypt this fully, if we can't expose the chorus, there will be more. Many more. Other victims. The raw data of human suffering buried in sound. The weight of it pressed down on Elias, a crushing burden of responsibility. What happens if I refuse? He asked, though he knew, deep down, the answer. Dr. Thorne's gaze remained unwavering. Then, the silent chorus will find you. They know you have the recording. They know you heard Finch. And they are very, very good at silencing witnesses, permanently. You're safer with us, Elias. We can protect you. And together, we can dismantle them. Her words hung in the air, cold and irrefutable. Elias was caught. Between a shadowy organization intent on his silence and an equally shadowy one promising protection and a chance at justice. His reclusive life, a carefully constructed illusion of safety, had shattered. The choice was stark. Run and hide, a futile gesture against an enemy that moved like a ghost, or engage, to become part of something far larger, far more dangerous than anything he had ever imagined. His eyes drifted to the monitor displaying the waveform of the encrypted frequency, then back to Dr. Thorne. She was waiting, her expression a careful blend of urgency and understanding. She saw the fear in his eyes, but also, perhaps, the flicker of a dormant curiosity, the obsessive drive to understand, the need to dissect the noise until only truth remained. "Show me," Elias heard himself say, his voice finding a new, unexpected resolve. "Show me everything." Dr. Thorne gave a subtle nod, a hint of grim satisfaction playing on her lips. "Good. We don't have much time. They'll be here soon." Just as she finished speaking, a faint, metallic scrape echoed from somewhere deep within the building. It was a sound Elias knew well, the faint whisper of steel on steel, the unmistakable sound of a lock being meticulously, silently picked. His blood ran cold. The silent chorus was here. They're inside. Elias breathed, the words barely audible. "Get the drive, Elias. Now," Dr. Thorne commanded, her voice suddenly sharper, all traces of gentle persuasion gone. She was already moving, her movements surprisingly agile, pulling a small, sleek device from her jacket. It looked like a highly advanced portable comm unit, but also, disturbingly, a weapon. "We need to get out of here," she urged, pointing towards a hidden panel on the soundproofed wall. "There's a secure exit in the basement." A sharp crack echoed from above. Not the sound of a gun. The distinct sound of Elias's heavy studio door being forced open, splintering wood. They had found his sanctuary. They were inside, and they knew he was gone. Elias lunged for his server rack, his fingers fumbling with the secure hard drive containing the original recording. He yanked the drive free, its cool surface a sudden anchor in the maelstrom of fear. "Got it!" he cried. A shadow flickered past the doorway of his studio, too fast to be seen clearly, but its predatory presence was undeniable. The soft, methodical footsteps, the almost imperceptible whisper of their movements, they were ghosts in his own home, and they were hunting. "Follow me. Don't make a sound," Dr. Thorne instructed, already disappearing through the hidden panel. Elias scrambled through the cramped, dust-filled passage, the sounds of the intruders above him growing clearer. They were everywhere. He heard the careful tread of their boots on his polished floor, the quiet slide of their search. They lived up to their name, the silent chorus. The air grew colder as they descended a narrow, spiraling staircase, reaching the utility basement. It was a maze of dusty pipes and tangled wires. Dr. Thorne navigated it with an unnerving familiarity, her small device occasionally emitting a soft, directional ping. "Almost there," she whispered, her voice tight with urgency. Just ahead, suddenly, a more definitive thump echoed from above. They weren't being subtle anymore. Or perhaps they were confident. Confident they had Elias cornered. They burst out of the basement into a narrow, dimly lit alleyway behind his building. The night air was a shock to Elias's senses, cold and raw after the stagnant air of the basement. Thorne pointed to a discreet, black sedan waiting at the end of the alley. Its engine was already idling. A low, almost silent hum. A predator blending into the urban night. "Go," she urged. Elias scrambled into the back seat, the door clicking shut with a heavy, final thud. The driver, a lean figure whose face was obscured by the dim light, immediately accelerated. The car peeled away from the curb without a screech of tires, blending seamlessly into the night traffic. Professional. Everything about this was chillingly professional. Elias risked a glance back at his building. The windows of his studio, usually dark save for the glow of his monitors, were now completely black. A chilling void. His sanctuary was compromised. His life, as he knew it, was over. He clutched the hard drive, a cold, hard lump in his hand. The key, the silent truth, and his new, terrifying responsibility. Dr. Thorne turned to him in the dim light of the car, her face grim. "We have to move quickly. They'll be tracking the vehicle. We need to get you to a secure location where we can analyze that drive. And then, Elias. Then we go to work. We begin the counter symphony." The world outside the car blurred into a confused smear of light and shadow. Elias Vance was no longer a reclusive sound designer. He was a fugitive, a witness, and a pawn in a game he still barely understood. But one thing was terrifyingly clear. The silent chorus was not going to let him go, and the hidden echoes on that drive held not just the secret of a murder, but the potential to bring down an empire built on silence and death. The true nightmare had just begun. The black sedan sliced through the sleeping city streets, a silent predator in the pre-dawn gloom. Elias, clutching the hard drive as if it were his very lifeline, stared out the window. The familiar landmarks of his city blurred into an unrecognizable canvas of fear. His meticulously ordered life, once defined by the controlled hum of his studio, had violently unraveled. He was a piece displaced, a note struck out of tune, propelled into a terrifying symphony of shadows and secrets. Beside him, Dr. Elias Thorne sat with an unsettling calm, her presence a curious blend of reassurance and profound mystery. The car finally pulled into a nondescript underground garage beneath an unassuming, featureless building. It was a place designed for anonymity, for disappearing without a trace. As they stepped out, the air was cool and still, thick with the scent of concrete and distant exhaust fumes. Elias looked around, his hypersensitive ears picking up the faint drip of water, the distant rumble of the city's hidden infrastructure, the subtle hum of ventilation systems. This was not a home. This was a temporary haven, a strategic bunker in a silent war. "Welcome to the vault," Dr. Thorne said quietly, her voice echoing faintly in the cavernous space. "It's not home, but it's secure. For now." She led him through a series of reinforced doors, each one clicking shut with a heavy finality that spoke of protection and containment. They moved through dimly lit corridors until they reached a room that, despite its stark simplicity, was filled with advanced technological equipment. Screens glowed with complex data, intricate network diagrams, and cryptic lines of code. It was a place where information was king, and secrets were relentlessly pursued. "This is where we work," Dr. Thorne explained, gesturing to a sleek, minimalist console dominating the center of the room. "And this is where we begin to dismantle the silent chorus." Elias placed the hard drive on the console, its smooth, cold surface feeling suddenly insignificant against the enormity of the task ahead. He looked at the labyrinth of wires and screens, a different kind of soundscape, one he was not yet fluent in. "Their signature," Thorne began, pointing to a shimmering waveform on a large monitor. is a masterclass in obfuscation. It's designed to be invisible to conventional analysis. But what you heard, Elias, that raw, uncompressed sound of their work, that's our leverage. You have an auditory key no machine can replicate, and so, their chilling collaboration began. Elias, the artist of sound, sat before the gleaming console, guided by Dr. Thorne, the architect of information. He began to feed the raw, encrypted frequency from the hard drive into her systems. But it wasn't just about the data. It was about Elias's unique ability to listen. The tone, when processed by Thorne's advanced algorithms, revealed itself to be far more complex than even Elias had initially realized. It wasn't just a simple frequency modulation. It was a multi-layered construct, a symphony of hidden channels woven into a single, seemingly innocuous hum. Thorne's machines could decode the mathematical patterns. But Elias could hear the impurities, the subtle, almost organic flaws left by human touch, the faint echoes of the environment where the frequency had been crafted. Listen to this, Thorne instructed. Isolating a segment, the mathematical structure suggests a primary encryption layer here. But there's a variance, a microfluctuation in the carrier wave. What do you hear? Elias leaned in, closing his eyes, letting his heightened senses engulf the digital hum. He wasn't just hearing with his ears, he was feeling it, sensing its texture, its subtle inconsistencies. He heard the primary frequency. Yes, but beneath it, like a faint undertone, he detected a rhythmic, almost subliminal pulse. Not electrical, something else. It's organic, Elias murmured, his brow furrowed in concentration. A heartbeat, very faint, not human, but living, and it's changing. Faster here, then slower there. It's almost like a biological rhythm influencing the frequency. Thorne's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise in her usually composed demeanor. A biosignature? Embedded in the encoding? That's unprecedented. It suggests the originator of the encryption, or perhaps the device used, has a unique biological component, a specific neural pattern, perhaps. The implications were chilling. It meant the Silent Chorus wasn't just a faceless organization. It had a signature, a unique imprint left by one of its key operatives, embedded directly into their weaponized frequencies. It was a horrifying intimacy, a personal touch on a global network of death. As they worked, peeling back layer after silent layer, the vault became a temporary bubble of intense focus, a fragile pocket of defiance against the vast, unseen reach of the Silent Chorus. Elias heard more than just the heartbeat. He heard the almost imperceptible hum of specific server racks, a unique resonance that suggested the physical location where the frequency was originally encoded. He heard the distant, barely audible whine of an industrial coolant system, unlike anything he'd ever heard in a typical data center. Each microscopic sound, each anomalous frequency, was a breadcrumb leading them deeper into the labyrinth. Hours bled into a seamless continuum of intense work. Elias, who had once found solace in the controlled silence of his own studio, now found a strange, desperate purpose in this race against time, in deciphering the terrifying language of the Silent Chorus. Then, a sudden, sharp alert blared from one of Thorne's peripheral monitors. A red warning sign flashed, indicating a severe breach attempt, not against the vault itself, but against an offshore server farm Thorne's organization used for contingency data storage. They're not subtle when they can't pinpoint you directly, Thorne muttered, her fingers flying across her keyboard, her face grim. They're trying to wipe our backups. A scorched earth tactic. Elias watched, horrified, as lines of code raced across the screen, the data streams attempting to defend against an unseen, relentless assault. The Silent Chorus was trying to blind them, to erase their digital existence. It was a chilling reminder of their global reach, their ability to strike anywhere, anytime. "We lost a significant portion of our secondary archives," Thorne announced after a tense few minutes, her voice tight with frustration. They knew. They knew we were trying to recover Finch's work. They're like ghosts, Elias. They appear, they attack, they vanish. The attack, though thwarted in its entirety, left them with a profound sense of vulnerability. Even in the secure confines of the vault, the silent chorus could touch them, could inflict damage. The hunt was now relentless, and the stakes grew higher with every passing moment. As the digital battle subsided, Elias returned to the haunting frequency. His resolve hardened. The more they attacked, the more determined he became to expose them. He focused on a particularly dissonant segment within the embedded tones, a place where the intricate pattern seemed to momentarily falter. He amplified it, isolated it, pushed it beyond what seemed possible. And then, he heard it, a faint, almost lost whisper beneath the layers of digital noise. It wasn't the victim's last breath. It was a distinct background sound, a very specific, rhythmic thump-thump hiss. Elias's hands froze over the console. His breath hitched. He had heard that sound before, not on a recording, in person, many years ago. It was the sound of a specialized breathing apparatus, a very unique, antiquated model, one that was used during highly controlled, highly dangerous industrial extractions. And then, another layer resolved, a faint, almost unidentifiable chime. It was short, melodic, and had a strangely haunting quality. He had heard that chime before too. The memory hit him like a physical blow. Not a memory of sound design, a memory of screaming metal, of shattering glass, of the wrenching agony of loss. The accident, the car crash that had stolen his family, leaving him with hypersensitized hearing and an abyss of grief. That distinct breathing apparatus, that chilling chime, they were the sounds that had permeated the terrifying minutes immediately after the crash, when emergency responders had tried desperately to save his loved ones amidst the twisted metal. His mind reeled, a torrent of suppressed memories flooding his consciousness. The chaotic sounds of the crash, the distant wail of sirens, the frantic shouts, and then, piercing through it all, the rhythmic thump-thump hiss of the breathing apparatus as the paramedics worked on the victims. And that chime, it was the alarm, a very rare and specific kind, from a specialized medical monitor attached to the very last of them. Elias gasped, his eyes flying open, staring at the waveform on the screen as if it held the very essence of his past trauma. It was impossible. It couldn't be. "Elias? What is it?" Dr. Thorne asked, sensing the profound shift in his demeanor. "What did you find?" His voice was a raw whisper, barely audible. The sound, the chime, and the breathing. It's from the accident. My family. The last moments before He couldn't finish the sentence. The words died in his throat, choked by grief and a horrifying new realization. Dr. Thorne, usually so composed, looked at him with a mixture of shock and deep concern. "What are you saying, Elias? That Finch's murder, it somehow connects to your past?" Elias nodded, his head swimming. "Not just connects, it uses those sounds." The chime was a digital signature, a kind of macabre calling card, and the breathing apparatus sound, it was embedded in the frequency. As a layer of obfuscation, they took the sounds of my worst moment and they wove them into their weapon. It's a signature. The revelation was a punch to the gut, a betrayal of the most intimate kind. The silent chorus wasn't just a shadowy organization. They were monstrous. They used the very fabric of human suffering, the sounds of profound personal tragedy, as tools for their silent assassinations. And they had somehow acquired the forensic audio from the very accident that had irrevocably shaped Elias's life. "This is beyond chilling," Thorne murmured, her face pale. "They harvest human trauma, they weaponize it. This isn't just about control, Elias. This is about psychological warfare. It's about breaking their targets before they even know their targets. And by linking Finch's death to your trauma, they're sending a very specific message. They know who you are. They know what hurts you. The realization settled over Elias like a shroud. The silent figure he thought he saw outside his window, the anonymous client, the cryptic recording, it was all part of a larger, more horrifying design. They had chosen him, not just for his auditory gifts, but for his vulnerability. They had tailored their silent symphony of death to torment him personally, to make him a witness to a murder steeped in the echoes of his own deepest pain. Suddenly, Elias's involvement in this deadly game was no longer a matter of unwilling entanglement or abstract justice. It was intensely personal. The silent chorus had defiled his past, corrupted his memories, and used his deepest wounds as a grotesque signature. He was no longer just helping Dr. Thorne dismantle an organization. He was fighting for his very sanity, for the sanctity of his own history. His fear transmuted into a cold, hard rage. He would not let them win. He would not let them use his grief as their weapon. He leaned into the console, his eyes burning with a fierce new determination. "The server farm," he said, his voice now steady, devoid of the earlier tremor. "The one they attacked. Is there any residual data? Any sound of their presence there? Something that lingered after their attempt?" Thorne nodded, pulling up another screen. "We managed to salvage some raw network logs, but it's mostly digital noise now, fragmented. What are you thinking?" "They left a trace," Elias replied, his mind already racing, sifting through the auditory possibilities. "They always do. Even the silent chorus. They are arrogant enough to believe they're perfect. But sound never lies. I want to hear the echo of their attack. The digital detritus, the subtle frequencies left behind in the network's disruption. There will be a pattern, a vibration, a unique imprint of their passage." Dr. Thorne stared at him, a glint of respect in her eyes. "You want to find their digital fingerprint in the static. No one has ever managed that before. They're not just digital ghosts," Elias declared, his voice firm, filled with a newfound purpose. "They're corporeal. They exist somewhere, and they made a sound that only I can hear. Show me the raw data, Dr. Thorne. Every corrupted byte, every fragmented log. If they use my past as their weapon, then my past will be their undoing." He was no longer just Elias Vance, the reclusive sound designer haunted by his memories. He was a hunter, his senses honed, his grief transformed into a formidable weapon. The silent chorus had played their symphony of terror. Now, it was time for Elias to conduct his counter-symphony, to expose them not with a bang but with a whisper, a truth so piercingly clear it would shatter their silence forever. The fight had become his own, and for the first time in years, Elias felt a terrible, exhilarating clarity. The hidden echoes of the past would finally reveal the path to the present. The silent hum of the vault's technology now pulsed with a new, urgent rhythm. Elias Vance, his eyes burning with a fierce resolve, leaned over the console, his fingers dancing across the controls. The revelation that his own deepest trauma, the very sounds of his family's final moments, had been weaponized by the silent chorus, had transformed his fear into a cold, unwavering fury. This was no longer just about justice. It was about reclaiming his past, dismantling the architects of his pain. Dr. Thorne, a silent sentinel beside him, watched with a mixture of concern and a grudging awe. She had never witnessed such raw, intuitive processing of data. Elias wasn't merely analyzing the fragmented network logs from their compromised server farm. He was listening to them. He was hearing the ghostly echoes of the silent chorus's digital invasion. "There," Elias murmured, his voice tight with concentration. "A signature. In the residual data, it's a low-frequency hum, almost like a distant generator, but it's irregular. A specific oscillation, like a faulty power supply, but synchronized. Thorne adjusted her monitors, her brow furrowed. A physical signature embedded in the network static? Elias, that's impossible. Digital noise doesn't carry environmental acoustics. This isn't just digital noise, Dr. Thorne, Elias countered, not looking up from the screen. This is their noise, the sound of their actual infrastructure, bleeding through their digital footprint. They're arrogant. They believe their encryption is absolute. They believe their operations are silent. But nothing is ever truly silent. There's always an echo, a vibration. And this one, it's familiar, like the cooling system from the original frequency, but louder, more prominent now. He meticulously isolated the pulsating hum, stripping away all other data. He filtered, amplified, and then, with a stroke of genius, he layered it against archived audio of known industrial power plants and data centers. He sought a match, a resonance that would betray its unique origin. The hours stretched, each moment a tense breath held. The silent chorus, in their ruthless efficiency, had pruned their digital trails, leaving behind what they believed to be indecipherable static. But they hadn't accounted for Elias's unique gift, his ability to perceive the unperceivable, to hear the phantom vibrations of the physical world within the digital realm. Then, a sudden, almost imperceptible shift in the hum. A tiny, almost subliminal click hiss. It was too faint for Thorne's advanced analysis, but it sang directly to Elias's hypersensitive hearing. "There," Elias exclaimed, his finger pointing to a minuscule aberration in the waveform. "That sound, it's the same pneumatic signature from Finch's murder, but it's fainter, remote. It's not a weapon. It's a specialized vent, a pressurized airlock, maybe. Very specific. And that low thrum, it's consistent with a subterranean facility, deep underground." Thorne quickly cross-referenced Elias's auditory observations with a global database of known and suspected hidden infrastructures. She filtered for subterranean facilities, for unique pneumatic systems, for specific power grid anomalies that matched the rhythmic hum Elias described. The possibilities narrowed, and then a single, compelling match flared on her screen. "There's a dormant, heavily classified Cold War-era research facility," Thorne stated, her voice tight with disbelief. "Buried beneath a disused textile mill in an industrial wasteland outside the city. It was designed for biological containment, with a bespoke pneumatic filtration system and an independent experimental power source. It's been off-grid for decades. No one should even know it exists. No one but the silent chorus," Elias finished, his gaze fixed on the coordinates now displayed. "They're operating from a ghost site, a fortress built on silence and forgotten secrets." The realization was chilling. The heart of the silent chorus, the source of their chilling frequencies, their silent murders, was a forgotten relic of a bygone era, repurposed for modern terror. The decision was made. They couldn't wait. The silent chorus was aware they were being hunted, and they would surely move their operations, destroy their data. This was their window. Thorne quickly dispatched encrypted communications, mobilizing a small, elite team from her organization. Elias, despite his reclusiveness, felt a surge of grim determination. He would face the source of his torment. Hours later, under the cloak of deepest night, Elias and Dr. Thorne, accompanied by a small team of quiet, efficient operatives, approached the dilapidated textile mill. The air was heavy with the scent of damp concrete and decay. The mill was a skeletal structure, its broken windows, like vacant eyes, staring out into the oppressive darkness. Elias, equipped with specialized audio receivers and a comms link to Thorne, walked in eerie silence through the overgrown grounds. Every creak of the old building, every rustle of dry leaves, every distant siren seemed amplified to his heightened senses. He listened for the hum, the specific oscillation, the faint click hiss of the airlock. guiding the team towards the hidden entrance. Below the west loading dock, Elias whispered into his comms, his voice low and steady. "I can hear the resonance. It's stronger there." The main vent system. The team located a cleverly disguised access panel beneath the crumbling dock. With practiced ease, they bypassed the archaic locks, revealing a narrow, descending shaft. The air grew immediately cooler, heavier, as they began their descent into the earth. As they moved deeper into the subterranean complex, the faint hum Elias had identified grew stronger, more pervasive. It vibrated through the very soles of his shoes, a low, guttural growl that resonated in his bones. This was the pulse of the silent chorus's heart. Thorn moved with a quiet efficiency, her device occasionally scanning, confirming Elias's auditory map of the labyrinthine facility. The corridors were stark, concrete, dimly lit by emergency lights that cast long, unsettling shadows. The very air felt oppressive, heavy with the weight of unseen secrets. And then, Elias heard it. Not the facility's hum, not the subtle sounds of the team's careful movements. This was different. A faint, almost imperceptible clatter, like metal on concrete, irregular, displaced. And then, a series of very soft, precise clicks, the sound of a key turning in a lock, but coming from ahead. They weren't alone. Movement ahead. Elias whispered into his comms, his voice tight. "They're here. More than one. Careful." The team moved silently, their firearms raised. They turned a corner, and there, in a large cavernous chamber filled with advanced computer servers and communication equipment, were several figures. They were dressed in dark, tactical gear, their faces obscured by balaclavas. The silent chorus. They were packing up, dismantling their operations, already aware their sanctuary had been breached. A tense standoff ensued, a silent ballet of trained professionals. But amidst the quiet confrontation, Elias's ears picked up something else. A very specific, almost melodic ping emanating from one of the figures. It was a digital signature, broadcasting from a small device concealed within their gear. A control signal, and Elias recognized its unique frequency. It was similar to the high-pitched tone from the recording, but more complex, an active command sequence. "The one on the far left," Elias hissed into his comms. The small device on his belt. "It's broadcasting the master frequency. It's activating something." Before Thorn's team could react, the figure lunged for a console, his hand hovering over a large, ominous red button. "He's wiping everything," Thorn cried out, understanding dawning on her face. "A final purge. He'll destroy all the data, all the evidence." Elias knew he had only moments. He didn't have time to explain. He ripped the portable receiver from his comms link, his mind already racing ahead, calculating, imagining. He needed to amplify that ping, that control signal, and then he needed to disrupt it. Not with a digital countersignal, but with a pure, raw, auditory overload. He grabbed a discarded, heavy-duty industrial speaker from a nearby maintenance cart, its wires exposed. Ignoring Thorn's alarmed calls, he frantically plugged it into his personal sound interface, which he had brought in a small tactical pack. His hands moved with a desperate, intuitive speed, his mind focusing on the specific frequency of the master signal. The figure reached for the red button, his finger descending. Elias closed his eyes, his entire being focusing on that single, destructive ping. He didn't just hear it. He felt its vibration in the air, its intent in the frequency. And then, he unleashed his own counter-symphony. With a primal scream that resonated not from his throat but from the depths of his being, Elias unleashed a calculated, precisely modulated blast of pure, raw white noise through the industrial speaker. It wasn't just loud. It was engineered, an auditory counter-frequency designed to cancel out and corrupt the silent chorus's master control signal. The chamber filled with a deafening, piercing screech. a chaotic maelstrom of sound that tore through the air. It was a sound so agonizingly pure, so utterly devoid of pattern or rhythm, that it assaulted the senses. The figures in tactical gear stumbled, clutching their heads, their carefully orchestrated movements dissolving into disarray. The man at the console cried out, his finger spasming away from the red button. The master frequency ping fractured, dissolving into corrupted static. The screens on the console flickered violently, then went black. The silent chorus, who thrived on silence, were utterly undone by its absence. Their precision, their composure, shattered by the overwhelming, disorienting force of pure sound. Thorne's team moved in, swift and decisive, apprehending the stunned operatives. The chamber, once a hub of silent terror, was now filled with the sounds of their capture, the metallic clink of restraints, the harsh whispers of commands. As the chaos subsided, Elias, gasping for breath, dropped the speaker. The deafening white noise faded, replaced by the ringing silence in his ears. He looked at Thorne, his body trembling, his mind reeling. The frequency, I disrupted it, he whispered, his voice hoarse. They can't wipe the data now. It's all there. Thorne nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and relief. You didn't just disrupt it, Elias. You exposed them. That frequency they used, it was their lifeline, their network, their silence. You shattered it. In the aftermath, amidst the captured operatives and the compromised technology, Elias found himself drawn to the man who had almost initiated the purge. His balaclava had been torn away in the struggle, revealing a face Elias recognized, not from the news, not from his professional life, but from the archives, from the grainy, terrifying images of the forensic reports from the accident that had claimed his family. The paramedic, the one who had stood over the wreckage, monitoring the final, fading life signs, the one whose unique breathing apparatus had created that chilling thump-thump hiss in Elias's memories. This was not the mastermind, but he was a key operative. He was the one who had harvested the sounds of Elias's personal tragedy. The realization was a cold, hard knot in Elias's stomach. The silent chorus didn't just stumble upon the sounds. They had deliberately sought them out, a profound act of psychological cruelty. As the facility was secured, and Thorne's team began to download the uncorrupted data from the silent chorus's servers, Elias walked away, his ears still ringing from his self-made sonic weapon. He found a quiet, isolated corner in the vast, cold complex. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he truly listened to the silence. Not the oppressive silence of his studio, nor the terrifying silence of the silent chorus, but a quiet that held a different kind of promise. A peace, hard-won, born from the unraveling of a monstrous truth. The data retrieved from the silent chorus's servers revealed a vast, intricate network of corruption, espionage, and silent assassinations. Politicians, corporate titans, intelligence operatives, all compromised, all manipulated by a shadowy entity that operated without a name, without a face, their only signature, the chilling silence they left in their wake. Thorne's organization would work for years to dismantle it, to bring its hidden members to justice. Elias Vance, the reclusive sound designer, had found his purpose in the heart of the storm. He had plunged into the darkest echoes of human depravity and emerged, not unscathed, but with a clarity he had never known. The world was still a symphony of noise, of chaotic sounds. But now, Elias knew that even in the deepest silence, there were truths waiting to be heard. And he, Elias Vance, the master of echoes, was finally ready to listen. His journey had ended, not in quiet solitude, but with the profound understanding that sometimes the loudest truths are found in the softest whispers, and that even the most terrifying silence holds the key to its own undoing. And as the dawn broke over the industrial wasteland, casting long, pale fingers into the rediscovered complex. Elias felt the first fragile stirrings of a future, where his gift was no longer a curse, but a profound, undeniable power. His story, whispered into the echo chamber of the night, was finally complete. And so, dear listeners, we leave Elias Vance. His journey, born from a chilling discovery in the depths of a silent frequency, transformed him from a reclusive artisan of sound into an unlikely hero. The echo chamber has closed, its final notes resonating with the quiet victory of truth over shadow. Elias learned that even in the most profound silence, there are echoes waiting to be heard, and that sometimes the greatest power lies not in making noise, but in truly listening. I hope this story has resonated with you, leaving you with the subtle hum of its mysteries, long after the final word fades. Until next time, this is Zaman, inviting you to remember that even in the quietest moments, there's always a story waiting to be heard.